So, I was watching a video the other day, and they're all over YouTube. Rapier versus longsword, katana versus hand and a half sword, or whatever. So I saw this one. It was rapier versus katana, and it wasn't. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't a bad video at all. Not at all. But the guy kept getting his butt whooped, who was using the katana. Yeah, a rapier has a little bit more length. They're not that much longer than a katana, though. Now, I don't have a rapier, but I do have a fencing foil. Okay? So, fencing foil, yeah, it's super light. And you can really move it fast. And it's all on the wrist, is what you're going to use. You're using the wrist. So, that can be a disadvantage, yes, compared to a katana. Katana obviously weighs way more than something like this, or a rapier. And a rapier is designed for, some have an edge, but they're designed mainly to, stab. So, whereas a katana is slashing and cutting. And I think the problem was, he's not used to, he's a HEMA instructor. So, I can tell he hasn't really played with the katana that much. Because, one, he doesn't bend his knees enough. So he's kind of stiff-legged. And you don't want to be stiff-legged. It goes for any type of sword that you're using. You never want to be straight-legged while you're using a sword. The reason why we bend the knees, even in HEMA and whatnot, you're creating a center of gravity. Now, the lower you get with bending your knees, the more you create a center of gravity. Hence, if you're cutting tatamis, I actually gave this advice to Alien Tube on one of his videos. He was standing there, he was trying to cut tatamis, and it got way down here, and he's trying to do it like this. And I suggested, bend the knees, drop your body down, and you'll be able to do a nice clean cut. Because you're creating that center of gravity, and you're putting yourself on the same cutting plane. Instead of up here, coming down, you're dropping the body, and then cutting. So, I noticed that in his video. He would bend his knees a little bit, but not enough. And the rapier guy, he's getting, way down there. The other thing is, I think some people have a misconception. Because you have this handle like this, nice handle. This is a 10.5. I like 11. Some are a little bit longer, of course, we know that. You have to use two hands. That's not true. Katana is a two-handed primarily, but it's also a one-handed weapon. Okay? So as he's fighting, so if a rapier, like I showed, you can maneuver that sucker anywhere you want. So if you're using two hands against somebody with one hand, let's say they're trying to come from underneath me on the left side. I can't really swoop down because my left arm is stopping me. So let's go with the right, swooping from same thing. I can do it this way, obviously. But if it's on my left side, I'm impaired. I can't do it. Now, if we switch it up, let's lead with left leg. We can still do it, and we can get a little bit more this way now, if we're leading with the left leg. But, if you take your hand off, I can move it whichever way I want. Now, to get the maximum cutting power out of a katana, yes, two hands. You want two hands on it for maximum cutting power. But you don't always have to. Especially if you're sparring with somebody with the proper gear, and they did, you're doing it for fun. and to learn and experience. So you're not really trying to like kill the person. So you can use one hand. That's saying like intentionally, there's a lot of one-handed moves, especially when you first draw it. We have undercut. Take it and you swoop it around. Come down. As you're coming down, you put your left hand on so you can give it more power. So I think sometimes people forget that you don't always have to have two hands on one of these. Same with European swords. Now, granted, like I said, I don't have any. I'm sure you can do it the same way. You know, you can use one hand. Because that's still, even with my left hand, I can really rotate this thing and get maximum movement out of it. Whereas, like I said, if you come from the left side, it kind of restricts you. So if you want to smack that blade away this way, like that, you really couldn't. So just thought I'd throw this one out there, that it's okay to use one hand on one. Even if you're dueling, give it a try. Now, the problem with it, using one hand, even if you're using one of these, especially if you're using a rapier, this is what I would say is a drawback to a rapier, to a katana. When you use one hand, so the advantage of having two hands on this against something like this or a rapier is you're going to be able to blow through their defenses with this. Because one, yeah, a rapier is a little bit wider, way wider than this, and tapers. Okay, but compared to a katana, it has a lot more surface. So that's a lot more surface that you can use to blow through somebody's defenses, which makes it harder for them to disengage you because there's more surface. So that's a disadvantage when you use one hand, though, and you have to have that mindset that if you are using one hand, depending on how hard your opponent's going to hit you, they're going to blow right through it, your defenses. So you have to gauge and judge. Like we have one move, Intentionia, where we draw in reverse grip. So you draw the blade out in reverse grip, and you drop the blade down like ice pick. It's ice pick motion to block. It's basically you're protecting the right leg, the blade's down here, this hand will go up against the blade. And the reason why is you're steadying it from them blowing through. And then after they've hit, you take your hand and you smack this so it bounces their blade away from you. And then you can cut. I'll do a demonstration of that move. But that just shows, if you're even like this trying to block, yeah, they're going to blow through. But if you support it, and the blade's nice and wide, so you have some meat there, you're not going to get cut. And I normally kind of do this. So this portion of my hand's away from that edge, even though this one is not sharp. It's in the Iaito. But that's, like I said, that's something you have to take in consideration. What's the hit going to be like? It's going to be a heavy hit, a light hit. So yeah, there's drawbacks to using one hand. There's drawbacks to using two hands. So, does it make it the sword better or worse? No, not in my opinion. It depends who has it in their hands. The skill level of the person that's using it. That's what it all boils down to. All swords, when you think about it, are almost equal to one another. They just have different shapes, different designs, different materials. And they all perform differently. Like I said, rapier is a little bit longer than a katana. So the advantage to it is it does have a little bit more length. It's a stabbing weapon mainly. So if you get past the defense of this, you can stab somebody. Whereas something with a little bit more length, you got to get past that point so you can do a slash or a cut. So there's pros and cons to every sword. But don't think you always have to use two hands on a sword. 90% of the time, you can use one. Like I said, it's not going to be the most powerful cut, no. But it's going to cut, for sure. Especially when you have the longer the blade, it's going to be a little bit harder. With the Wakizashi doing it because they're one-handed swords anyways, yeah, it's going to be real quick. So I thought I'd just throw that out there. Like I said, forget whose video it was. It was a good video. It really, really was. I just saw a few things he did wrong. One of them was he continuously wanted to use it two-handed. And I think that's just due to not knowing. Because like I said, he deals with European swords, you know, HEMA. So that's a lot different. They have a ton of one-handed moves. Iaido has a bunch, but a lot of them, when you cut, you use two hands. Well, you can use one. So, I hope everybody enjoyed this one. The eclipse was today. Here in California, we really didn't see it because it was like only a little 15% of it. So, pretty much we missed the hell out of it. And, saw some other people's posts of it. Very cool. But I'm glad that people got to enjoy it. So, we'll see you guys all later. And take it easy.